Hi guys, welcome to Web Technologies. Let's talk about responsive web design. This is an approach aimed at crafting sites to provide an optimal viewing experience, easy reading and navigation with a minimum of resizing, panning, and scrolling across a wide range of devices, from mobile phones to desktop computer monitors. We'll be looking at different responsive design approach: the viewports, CSS modifying, the max width on elements, media queries, and so on. Firstly, let's start from a small project that doesn't use some responsive design guidelines. We'll be creating and adding up the meta viewport to the page with initial scale set. We're going to adjust the CSS and markup so that everything displays in a single column, which is actually going to use a relative width so that things stretch to fit across any viewport width. We're going to make sure that the touch targets are easy to hit, and we'll be testing across our different sites viewports, which we're going to be using their Chrome browser responsive scale designs. So let's get started. We have the source code of this particular project right there in my text editor, and I'll be showing you how it actually look right there in Chrome using the you can actually get this kind of screen right there from the settings. Once you go to the settings or more tools, for the developer tools, you get that showed, and you can easily opt for different mobile emulators: the Galaxy S5, Nexus S5X, Nexus GP, and so on. You can even decide to pick a responsive design, so you can you can have the ability to set the width and height. Now this is the website. If you should notice, it's actually not looking too good. A lot of elements are squashed together, and the text are so tiny, and it's actually not visible. So this is not a good user experience. If we should get to look at it right there in the larger screen, it's kind of look fairly good, but still not sitting appropriately. So we would like to add some touches to the site, add the viewport, adjust CSS, and make sure we have the width relative to the viewport, and we're going to actually test back again. So let me head straight to my Sublime text, and we have the markup of this HTML this way. This is the index.html. We have the head tag, the header, which houses the Brighton Times. We have the drawer, which is the nav as an element, and the main element here, which is the main tag, actually houses all the content we have, where we actually separated them into sections. It's very good to have your HTML segmented this way. The first section is the content that has the hero, which is we have the top news, we have the scores, and we have the weather section over here, and the news recent news section, and also we have the footer. So now we'll be integrating some amendments. The CSS are just this way, so we'll actually start from the index.html. So let me quickly start up. Firstly, we need to add the meta part, which is the viewport. I'll comment this to have that set up. Integrated, we have the viewport name, the content, the width, and the device width, and the initial scale is 1. It depends on how you actually calculated your viewports, but majorly it's always good to give your initial scale to be 1, and you have a fluid looking viewport. And let's head straight to the CSS. We have few things to do in the CSS here. We have the body tag set, the margin width, height 100%, cool. The body also is set with the font family, We have the H1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tags with a margin of 0. All those are okay. Let me scroll down to where we quickly need to make amends. Actually commented to actually make that in the header line inner tag. Let me copy that back to our index.html and find that right there. Header inner, which is for the main header, that's the inner header, the Brighton Times. We need to give a width of 100 pixels. It's actually going to be 100%, not pixels. So that should be taken care of. Let's take away the width. So you don't specify a static width. Specify it with percentage so that it's actually going to stretch across different viewports. That's fine for the header inner. Let's get to look at other tags we need to take care of. The nav, that's the A attribute of the nav. We need to actually add some padding to that. 1.5 m. So that's actually going to give it some kind of space in between each other. So it's actually not going to be squashed together. So that's okay for that. Let's get to look at other aspects. The main tag, quickly look at the main tag, which is the one enclosing all the sections we have. You can still look at that. We have the main tag over here, which actually houses all the content that we are looking at right there in this web page. So back to our CSS. We actually need to add a width of 100% as well, a fluid width. So we're gonna take away the 800 pixels we actually specified it to be. So it's actually going to stretch out there. So it's actually going to be full. So that's the sense of that. Now let's get to look at the hero class. In this class, we're actually going to specify another width of 100% instead of the 480 pixels we are having here. And we are going to take away the float left. We don't need to float. Don't need to float left and right in the hero. And we'll also look at the class that houses these particular tag. Let's get to look at that in the HTML. The hero, which is the inner section of the content that actually houses the H2 tag of the absolutely astonishing breaking news. Let's get to look at that in the browser. Astonishing as breaking news, somewhere around there over here. This tag, the section, back to our Sublime text. So we have that set up. Now let's get to look at other elements we're going to take care of. The top news class, we don't need to float to right and specify a width of 20 pixels. Let's take that away. Let's make it simple where the height and padding will be okay. Now let's look at other aspects we need. The top news item, that's for the A tag of the top news item. Let's get to look at that right there in the HTML. Top news item right there. So we're gonna get to find that. Top news item, top news over here. Cool. So we're actually going to hold on to the A tag, which is this, the A, the href, which is the link, and we're going to actually add some padding to that. Let's add some padding of top of 1.5 m and also padding bottom to actually make it stretch out a little bit. So cool. Let's get to look at other tags we're going to take care of. The scores, we're going to take away the width and the float. We don't actually need that, and let's see where that is actually pointing at. We're going to get to find that right there. The scores over here, there's the section of the scores, which actually houses the dates, the theme in question, the score, and so on. We can actually get that right there in the browser as well. Over here, this section that actually takes care of the date, the theme, this one you're seeing right there, the score, and also the theme in question. So back to Sublime Text, we need to actually amend that. So let's get to look at other aspects we need to look at. Cool. The weather, we don't actually need the float for the weather section. Let's take away that, and the width as well. We're going to take away that. And while other aspects of the markup we need to look at, the snippet title, which is actually right there in the weather as well. That's the A tag, the href of the snippet title. We need to add up the padding. Let's create some space so that once you're clicking, once we are targeting the mobile experience. Once you are clicking on a button, on a title, on a link, let there be a big space. Don't let the user mistakenly click two buttons at a time. So that's what we are trying to avoid there by adding some padding to actually stretch out the elements. So that's fine. And in the footer, also in the A tag, we need to add some padding as well to actually make the href link clickable easily. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save the index.html as well, and I'll try to rerun our web page. So let's get to have that. Can you see that we have a fluid looking site, a more balanced site, bigger? So this is quite cool. That covers the whole web page, and you can actually see that we have that seated right in columns, and in just a column. We're not actually breaking different. We are not creating multiple columns here. So this is quite good, and it will be good for mobile experience as well. We're still going to add some other aspects to it, like media queries, to actually make it sit more appropriately. Let's get to look at the mobile experience. This is what we're going to have right here. This for iPhone 6. Can you see how visible it is? So now we're still going to be adding more functionality to this, but we've been able to cover the viewports, and we've been able to adjust the CSS and markup so that everything displays in a single column, whereby we use the relative width of 100% instead of the fixed width that we had, and so that it's going to stretch to fit across any viewport, and there will be touch. Can you see now the nav? You can easily click on it. It's not tiny, so even if you should rotate it to a landscape mode, it's quite big and cool to use. So in our next session, we'll be adding media queries to make this sit more appropriately on the device. Let's get to look at some other device we have here, the Galaxy S5. This is much more better for mobile experience. It's clear, large, and visible. So thank you guys for hanging out with me throughout this session. Please don't go anywhere. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to web design responsiveness. We're going to actually cover a lot, and I really want you to practice this as well and lay your hands on different principles of web design responsiveness. So thank you guys, and catch me up in the next tutorial.